Our live production team is ready? Ready? Okay. Good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is François Bonici. I am the director of the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship, sister organization of the World Economic Forum, and delighted to welcome you all here today to this stakeholder dialogue on unlocking the social economy. We welcome those of you in the room and those of you online to this session, which is co-hosted by the ILO, SAP, and Catalyst 2030, all members of the Global Alliance for Social Entrepreneurship hosted here at the World Economic Forum. This annual meeting, which is themed Cooperation in a Fragmented World, is the right time to be speaking about how we can drive partnerships to unlock the social economy. The world today, as we all know, is at a critical inflection point, facing multiple crises. A fresh series of crises on food, energy, inflation, on top of the existing long-term systemic crises of inequality and climate change. The World Economic Forum's Global Risk Report, published just before this annual meeting, identified the cost of living crisis as the most severe global risk over the next 2 years, and failure to mitigate climate change as the most severe global risk for the next decade. So as governments and companies at this annual meeting are revising strategies in response to these risks, we need to be looking for more sustainable models, more inclusive models of economic development that address these social inequalities, build cohesion and sustainability. Increasingly, companies and governments are engaging with the social economy, with social entrepreneurs, with cooperatives, with mutuals, to drive inclusive and sustainable outcomes. And they have been doing so for decades. Now we know the social economy is estimated to be about 7% of GDP globally and up to 10 to even 12% of employment in some countries. And organizations in this economy have pioneered and innovated with business models to provide for us a model of what our future economy might look like, driving social and environmental value. Whether as social businesses, inclusive businesses, cooperatives, foundations, mutuals, self-help groups, or social entrepreneurs, they continue to deliver on the triple bottom line of people, planet, and profit. As I mentioned at the World Economic Forum, we launched the Global Alliance for Social Entrepreneurship to bring together the public and private sector leaders with organizations from the social economy sector to advance this economy. In the working group of the social economy, under the leadership of Catalyst 2030, Euclid Network, Deloitte, and the Motsepe Foundation, we published the report Unlocking the Social Economy, which you have on your chair in front of you and online. In today's session, we have the honor of welcoming 3 very special guests from the public, private, and social economy sector to answer this important question. How can the public and private sectors work together to further unlock the social economy and create inclusive and resilient societies? Before I begin with my panel, I want to just recognize in the room Her Excellency Dr. Najla Bouden, the Prime Minister of Tunisia. Thank you so much for joining us. and also Her Excellency Zainab Ahmed, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning from Nigeria. A warm welcome to you and the whole audience and our esteemed panel. I'll start with Mr. Gilbert Hungbo, Your Excellency, former Prime Minister of Togo and the first African Director General of the International Labour Organization. Your Excellency, thank you again for joining us today. The ILO, we know, since 1919, has been working in support of the social economy. But last year, in the general discussion and at the International Labour Conference, this led to the adoption of the resolution on decent work and the social and solidarity economy. Tell us, this was the first high-level discussion at a UN institution of its kind. So tell us a bit about the definition of the social and solidarity economy and as it was adopted by the conference, and why this resolution and why now?
Thank you so much, and welcome all of you. And first of all of you that have organized the last night Francois event. I really want to say bravo. It was so very, very successful. Coming back to the session and the and your question, quite frankly, the definition per se is not the most critical or things that maybe one want to engage into. However, I do appreciate your question, because that definition, in fact, behind the definition, what is important is the set of values that are supposed to underpin what the social and solidarity economy is about. This is what the resolution really insists on. So, be it what you call the principles of voluntary cooperation, or mutual aid, democratic and participatory governance, etc., accountability, really the importance of putting people over capital. So while trying to have both the capital and the people, importantly, and the solidarity ahead, that's why it's so important for ILO. You also write by saying that this is the first UN-wide resolution or discussion that we had last year. But quite frankly, for me, it was about time. It was really about time. So I'm not saying that we have done well, but I'll say enfin, finally, at last we get there. But it's just a milestone. The work really is ahead of us. What the definition is also important is also to help the government in the policy making and the legislation processes to make sure that what we are considering and what we are not considering. So obviously we know that yesterday I talked about it from the foundation, from the self-help groups to the cooperatives. We know that all that are working to ensure that from the grassroots we really help each other in moving up the ladder, while keeping in mind the principle that we talk about.
Thank you so much. Perhaps I'll follow on from you, because it's really a milestone, right? And we know also this year that following ILO's leadership, but also with ILO's support, there is a draft UN resolution on the social and solidarity economy, something that I think many people in the room can help to champion. Do you have any update for us on the process?
No, the process, we have a group of member states led by Spain, and that is really a challenge in that, which is the normal, very effective way. The little I know about the UN processes, having a group of countries led by a country like Spain will help moving faster in the process of having these resolutions. And when my really objective is, once we have that resolution, is to bring the regional level and the national level to take steps to move ahead also with such a resolution. But I want to insist on one thing. Adopting a resolution is not an end in itself, right? It's really helping creating the conducive environment for us to be able to make the difference in our membership, in the people's life.
Absolutely. And there are many social economy actors that will use that resolution as momentum. So thank you for your work. The Global Alliance was established to bring both public but also private sector leaders together. And of course, the forum has an amazing array of private sector leaders, one of which is SAP. And I'm delighted to introduce Ms. Julia White, the Chief Marketing and Solutions Officer at SAP. SAP has, I would say, emerged as a private sector leader, but you've been doing this for over 10 years, so that this has been a long-term commitment to investing in ecosystem building in the social economy, supporting social entrepreneurs in almost 100 countries in the world, and demonstrating the different ways in which companies can partner with social entrepreneurs and benefit. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more around the role of the private sector in helping to advance the impact of the social economy. Julia, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me join today, and your support is amazing. So I'm going to start where you started as well. As coming from the private sector, it's important to start with your values as a corporation. Because if you're aligning with your values, then you're going to have a durable engagement model. Otherwise, leaders will change, and prior to change, and investments will change. So really, my advice is really make sure it's aligned with your corporate values, right? So SAP, 50 years ago, we were founded as a values-based organization. Our purpose that remains consistent over those 50 years of helping the world run better and improve people's lives. So as we looked at that and thought about our value system, it naturally aligned with an effort to combine and become part of the social economy and work hand in hand with social enterprises, again, in a durable way, because it needs to be long-term. None of these things happen quickly. So that's also very foundational as I talk to my private sector leaders thinking about it that way. So starting with that value space. And obviously, engagement with the social enterprises is gives so many good back and forth opportunities. So kind of three kind of pragmatic steps, I think, for when I engage with my peers of how they can do this best. So first, maybe not too surprising, is to engage with technology. Not surprising from a technology company, but for us, like making the right connections, finding those right ways to participate in the enterprise. And for us, there's an interesting stat, $30 trillion of commerce in 2021. $3 trillion of that went through SAP Business Network, where we bring 8 million suppliers and buyers together where they can find and transact and find new business opportunities. But as part of that, we've invested to make it so you can actually identify values-based organizations, social enterprises, things with the kind of humanitarian aspects that you're looking for as an enterprise. And so you can choose and select and find the right organizations, because there's a lot to choose from. So using technology to identify those right connections and those right transactions is a first step. Then, once you've identified those right connections, it's about engaging with them not just in philanthropic ways, that's important, but actually shifting spend. If you think about that $30 trillion of spend, we shift some of that by sourcing new suppliers, giving that massive impact versus just the corporate philanthropic work. And so we've taken a goal to shift a percentage of ours to those enterprises. And it's not just a procurement transaction piece of it. It's actually, we get new ideas. We get exposure to new opportunities. We're diversifying our value chain into new markets, into new regions as well. And so it gives us, helps us achieve our ESG metrics and our goals that we've set, but it also brings in new ideas and a richer value chain as part of the organization as well. And then the third area is just, I encourage people to think outside the box. There's different ways to have a give and take relationship. So for us, one of our challenges is around employee engagement. We've heard about quiet quitting and the great resignation, and so we really want to engage our employees in a new way. And so 10 years ago, we started a program called the Social Sabbatical, where we give employees up to 4 weeks where they can go spend time working on behalf of social enterprises or NGOs, and they get to participate in what they want. They get new experiences. They bring their experiences to bear. I've already engaged with a number of people here in Davos, excited about finding those data scientists to help them and other things, the skill sets that are hard to find that we have that we can loan. And we surveyed our employees who participate in the sabbatical. They stay at the company longer. they're more satisfied, and they're seeing more growth in their profession than they would have otherwise. And so it's a win-win. Actually, so coming out of seeing those results, we wanted to go bigger. So we actually partnered with a social enterprise, Moving Worlds, and extended it in partnership with Unilever and EY and other corporations. So now we can match employees from many Fortune 500 companies with any social enterprise around the world to extend beyond that as well. So really different ways to engage in that economy.
Julia, thank you so much, I think, for your leadership and SAP's leadership in this sector. It's also demonstrated how other companies can follow suit, and I think we're going to be hearing a little bit more about that shortly. We're here to obviously highlight both public and private sector champions, but also to recognize what is the role that social entrepreneurs do play with governments and private sector. So delighted and honored to introduce Jeru Bilamoria, one of our inaugural awardees of the Schwab Foundation. We celebrated 25 years of the Schwab Foundation last night, and Jeru was still with us, a serial social entrepreneur, child and youth finance, Aflatun, and originally Childline India, and now the chief facilitator of Catalyst 2030. Jeru, on all of this vast experience, tell us, how do social entrepreneurs contribute to advancing the agendas of government and businesses around the world?
Thanks, Francois. Firstly, I'm representing a lot of social entrepreneurs who are sitting in this room, so please reach out to all of them also because they contribute. Before I start, I'd like to thank SAP because they were our award winners for the Catalyst Business Award, which we gave this year. So congratulations to you all for making this happen. Social entrepreneurs across the world work very closely with government and the private sector. So instead of giving a lot of talk, I'll just give two examples. One will be Aflatun. It was the idea from children in a very rural village who said, we don't even have the money to be able to go and visit Bombay, which is 50 miles away. So instead of giving charity, we started teaching them how to save money and get to complete their dream. Today, Aflatun is an organization in 102 countries, and we are working with 30 governments, and I'm happy to say Tunisia is one of those governments, so it's really nice. And the curriculum has been included in the education system. So social entrepreneurs basically listen to the community, take an idea, and then take it to scale. Sabina, who is one of the award winners of this batch, she works in an organization called Doctors, and there she works with women and with the private sector to provide quality health care in Pakistan, reaching the last mile. So this is a very good private sector and social sector enterprise. And Catalyst has 1,200 such entrepreneurs working in all aspects of the SDGs. We work with, I think, every one of the 98 targets, which are 198 targets, and our entrepreneurs are looking at every different aspect, be it green, be it, every single thing. So I think that's what entrepreneurs bring. They listen to the most remote communities, take their voices, empower them, crystallize the idea, either work with the corporate sector or the government sector to scale. And I think this panel is the partnership of the three, whereby we can accelerate the SDGs. And I think that's what's very important.
Thank you so much, Jeru. Paul Hawken called this movement one of the largest movements ever seen, but without necessarily a face or a leader. We have some leaders here, but to recognize that there are hundreds of thousands of social enterprises and organizations, both small and large, working within the social economy around the world. I want to call on two leaders who were part of, as Jeru said, we had an inaugural awardee and we have our latest awardees that we're so privileged to welcome and invite to our annual meeting this year as our fire starters to ask a question to this esteemed panel. I'll start first with Sally Rover, the international coordinator of WeGo. I'll ask Sally to briefly present yourself, and if we can get a microphone to Sally, that would be great, and present a question to our panelists.
Okay, thanks so much, Francois, and thank you for being here today. My name is Sally.
Let's wait for another mic. Thanks.
Okay, better?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. My name is Sally Rover, and I'm International Coordinator of Women in Informal Employment, Globalizing and Organizing. It's a global network of networks that brings together organizations of workers in informal employment, alongside researchers, statisticians, and policymakers to try to change the systems that fail to see them and fail to value them. And my question is this, thinking about South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, in those geographies, 9 out of 10 people who work are informally employed, meaning they lack any institutional protection against risks that comes through their work. So my question is, what kinds of commitments could be made to ensure better working conditions for those workers, and what role do you see the social economy playing?
Perhaps, Your Excellency, you might want to take that first. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Very important key concern. This question, I believe, I can see 3 issues in one. So it's really, and you have the informal perspective. You have the role that the social and solidarity economy could play, and then you have the role that the government or the national or local authorities could play. At the outset, let me start with the informal sector. When you talk about Southeast Asia or continental Africa, you will see that 2/3, even more than 60%, between 60–70%, in some countries even 80% of the economy still, informal. And if the second point is that if you have seen we have seen a beginning of recovery after COVID-19 in late 21, early 2022. That recovery was happening much more in the informal sector. So the gain we had globally between 2004 2019, where the informal economy has been formalizing at least progress about 5%. After COVID, that progress has been wiped off totally. So, and the informal sector, we know that the precarity is quite very high, very little, if any, social protection at all. So this is one thing. Then the second thing is what the social and solidarity economy, and to me, first of all, is the answer to what we're trying to do in the informal sector. Because the social, and congratulations to you all, very well organized and very well determined on that. And that helps to bring the informal workers, to help them get formalized on that. And because sometimes the formalization is starts with what? It starts with organizing them. Is that from organizing them? Is that to try to make best use of technology and to give them a voice. And so the social and solidarity economy could be their voice as well, and help them. For example, we have some concrete cases where through the network of some of the social and solidarity economies, you have the informal sector have a mutual health insurance. For the communities, for example. So there's a huge expectation and things that the SSEs could do to help the informal sector on that. And very quickly, if I look now on the what I call the role of the government, and I'm looking forward to hear from the Prime Minister of Tunisia and maybe the Minister of Finance of Nigeria, you see that it's crucial for the authorities to create that conducive environment. Particularly, and I want to make a special plea, not just for the social economy in general, but specifically at the rural level. And in the community that you mentioned, there are a lot of countries where 70–80% of poverty is in the rural area. We have to keep that in mind. 80% of poverty in rural area. So to create a conducive environment, helping the social entrepreneurs to outreach. Yesterday, one of the awardees that I just happened to know in my previous life, really going through those villages where almost, you don't want to have a flat tire. because there's nobody there yet will go there and to provide fertilizers, provide input, and from a social enterprise perspective, not a humanitarian perspective. So those three things have to be in one.
Where other people see problems, social entrepreneurs see possibilities and come up with solutions. So thank you so much for that. Julia, I'm not sure, would you like to comment on that or perhaps give a perspective?
No, it's okay. I don't think
Okay, good. I just wanted to see. Well, we'll move on. We have a second fire starter, Joseph Kenner. It's been such a pleasure to get to meet him in person. The president and CEO of the very well-known social enterprise, Grayston, who've been pioneering open hiring that he's going to tell us a bit about.
Joe Kenner, President and CEO of Grayston. And Grayston has a for-profit benefit corporation where we practice what, as Francois said, open hiring. And what that is essentially, it's a no questions asked, first come, first served, first hired type of a hiring model. It's owned by a nonprofit, Grayston Foundation, and one of the missions of the foundation is to have this scaled with other corporations and even the public sector if we could. What would be your advice in terms of how we can scale that with other corporations within the private sector, other businesses, the private sector, the public sector as well?
You want to start first, Julia?
Yes, thank you. And again, very much an inspiration too. I spoke about the two-way dialogue and the two-way sharing of information. I think this is a great example. So I'm thrilled, based on influences of yours and others, SAP, we did drop our university requirement for all roles as we headed into this year, realizing that diverse backgrounds are so important. And you think about technology space, it's changing constantly. And so whether you've had a four-year degree or not, we need lifelong learners. And so actually we find people with different backgrounds come in with that mindset and that willingness to be a lifelong learner versus had a four-year degree and I'm done learning. And so I'm thrilled to see that change for our roles globally. So it will open up doors into new areas and give us a more diverse employee base to pull from, but also just diverse mindset and skill set in that area. So it's really a wonderful practice that we're working to adopt as well, and hopefully showcase the results of that to our peers, right? And then that creates peer pressure in the right way and an example of how it can work in that area. But related is bringing more and more people into the workforce. Like in the technology sector, our biggest challenge is skilled workers. And so we're now investing very heavily to ensure that we bring more skilled workers of all perspectives into the ecosystem. So a few different programs. One, we partnered with Coursera, online learning platform, where we're directly targeting the goal of 2 million technical trained between now and the next 24 months. And so really trying to bring people who maybe wouldn't think technology is in their background or their experiences, but we can show them that anyone can be part of this industry through online training and making it accessible with very specifically targeted on underrepresented and underserved parts of society, particularly as it comes to tech that isn't as diverse as we need it to be and want it to be in that area. We also have our own learning platform that we've dedicated 10,000 free certifications so they can prove that they've trained on our platform. Again, it's very specifically targeting underserved youth with that investment as well. And then continuing our partnership with UNICEF and Generation U to continue to pilot, again, programs not just in the technical skills, but general work and career skills, giving them workplace skills that they might not have exposure to otherwise. But then importantly, we don't just leave them there. We actually connect them into job opportunities at SAP, but also we have 40,000 partners that we work with across the globe. So we're creating on-ramps to get jobs into that 40,000 partner ecosystem as well. So we can be a conduit to find those talent, get them skilled, and then get them jobs, because sometimes they can just fall into the bridge there versus connect them into an actual role at the other side of it. So some of the things we're doing and trying to share, the learnings, the best practices, so that our other companies in our sector and outside our sector can see and learn from that as well.
Thanks, Julia. I think both of what you've been talking about is, we haven't named it, but how the current economy has clear biases and barriers around inclusion, whether it's diversity, whether it's race, whether it's gender, disability, education, class, etc., etc. And I think both Joe's example and what you've been speaking about are clearly ways of thinking about undoing some of those systemic barriers through very concrete examples and lessons. So Joe didn't get to speak too much about it, but I encourage you to look at the research and the evidence behind open hiring. There's one example of how we can break those systemic barriers in very powerful ways, and there are tons of other solutions out there meeting the challenges that companies are realizing, and governments. I mean, you're saying this is also potentially for governments, right? That exist today, and recognizing the need to make progress on some of these goals around inclusion and sustainability. Your Excellency, I'm not sure if you would like to respond to this question, or I know Jeru is also has some comments.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it's a fantastic thing you're doing, and what I would love is probably you're also working with social enterprises on this, because example, Lawuyo, a member from South Africa, a Schwab body, he trains thousands of youth from low-income communities, and I think that would be something which is very useful. And also we have two people from Africa. We have a program called Africa Forward, which is actually looking at youth employment and how to engage in the coal sector. So I think these sort of partnerships will really strengthen taking it forward. So I think that's something we can always look at, and have several other corporate partnerships. So you can lead the way in that also next.
Good, Jeru. I think this was also a moment speaking about the role of the private sector and the commitments to the social economy and social enterprise sector, that you wanted to give a small announcement.
Sure. I think what I really wanted to talk about was the Catalyst Business Commitment. This is something two of our entrepreneurs, Amanda and Rebecca, have been working very closely with SAP and EY and some other corporate partners, especially many of them from the Alliance. And this is to say, how can the corporate sector partner with the social sector? So this is the announcement for the Catalyst Business Commitment. Congratulations, SAP. Congratulations for leading the way. We have several others who are joining. And these are the first. These came on board in less than a month, because after we got this session, we said, let's make it happen. And everyone came on board. So I'm really hoping next year when we are Davos, we have at least 100 companies who are with us making this commitment happen. So I really want that to happen. And at the government angle, I think what governments should look at is the other part is looking at policy. In India, we have a 2% CSR. I would actually say, let's shift it to a 2% people and planet contribution. So when governments propel companies to do it, companies voluntarily come forward. We can actually, and they all work with social entrepreneurs who are at the front lines, we can actually bring about the change we want to accelerate achieving the SDGs. So I think that's what it is. So thank you, Francoise.
Congratulations on the announcement of this
SAP.
commitment, and I think to the companies that are leading the way in demonstrating how they can support this sector.
Yes,
so
definitely. And
maybe
we have a
let's give them a
session
round of
next with
applause.
Microsoft. So.
Thank you. I think I'm going to open up to the audience for some questions. We have some good time. Our speakers have been so succinct. This is wonderful. So we have some time for audience interaction. I may start in order of protocol with Her Excellency, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning from Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone.
Let's get. I'm not sure that microphone is working well. Okay, let's try.
Excellent panel, very interesting. I just wanted to pick up on a point that Jeru made about the impact of the social economy on the SDGs. During the COVID, of course, while we had made progress in the SDGs, there has been a significant setback. And the most people that are affected are women. So I just want us to continuously think about how we can grow on a basis that is sustainable but also inclusive, and how we can reset the course towards SDGs. Digitalization is important. We need to be able to just ramp up very quickly without having to reinvent the wheel. And to retool, in our case, a very large population of youths that have certificates but don't have the right skills. So whether you have gone to school and you have a BSc or a master's, you actually need the new skills to be able to have a fighting chance in this new social economy. So while you're doing this work at SAP, please do remember our countries that have youths that are very, very active and vibrant and digital savvy that could really benefit from these new skills that will give us a fighting chance of bridging the gap of the SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Would you like to comment or respond?
Just that I absolutely agree. And I think one of the benefits of, again, thinking about education differently, and particularly in the tech sector, it's always on, and it's available anywhere in the world. And really proud of the work with the UNICEF and others to reach into communities that otherwise would have never had access. And I think your point of making sure they have access, but then again, connecting them back into roles. And one of the other silver linings of the pandemic, other things, our workforce is everywhere. We don't go to the office anymore, and it's particularly in technology skills, you can do that anywhere. And so not only get trained wherever you are, but also work from wherever you are as well. So I do think there's a lot of opportunity here, and I'm excited to continue to push forward in that area.
I wanted to thank the Minister myself as a South African to point out the great opportunity of young people on the African continent, and to note that this digital transformation we're going through has the risk of driving inequality further. And so we need the social entrepreneurs, we need to consider the social economy as part of the digital economy, not as something separate, right? To be able to drive inclusive ways of building technology businesses on the continent and in the world. Also because we know that young people of today are looking to do something meaningful, not only to have a career. They want to solve the challenges that we and probably the generation here at this annual meeting are leaving them, and to solve that with the technological tools that we have with us. Jeru.
You said a lot of what I wanted to say.
Apologies.
So that's perfect, right? That's perfect. We think alike, so that's great. But I do want to say that actually there are many. Catalyst has a network of social entrepreneurs in Nigeria, and we have many entrepreneurs who have solutions of working with women. Actually, Ndidi, one of our entrepreneurs, is here, so it would be great. We can talk, and they have solutions on how we can work. They are also working. We have entrepreneurs working on digitization. So I think a partnership would be really good. And I'm going to say maybe we need to look at, if the government decides to take this idea which we are promoting, which is 2% of corporate revenue profits going towards the social economy or training and working with social entrepreneurs, then we can form this triangle to make it happen and actually make sure that there is lesser inequality. So I think happy to continue the discussion and to take it forward and see how it can, because there are several entrepreneurs working in this space, and we would be wonderful to work with you.
I just want to add one point with this very, very critical exchange between the Minister of Finance and SAP, is the accessibility to the connection. Particularly in the rural area, in the remote area, ability to be able to connect. When we talk about the internet penetration rate, sometimes we confuse. Last night we were having this discussion. Sometimes, we know that communities may have access to a cell phone. A cell phone does not mean necessarily that is a smartphone. And a cell phone sometimes is a cell phone in the whole household. On those. So sometimes the training, the material, all of that, we can make that available. But it doesn't mean that they are accessible on that.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Therese, could we perhaps give her the microphone? Thanks.
Hi, everyone. It was a very good panel. Thank you so much for your insights. I'm Reese. I'm from the Philippines, so it's essentially Facebook country. I'm a social entrepreneur, been doing sustainable fashion for 15 years in communities in Metro Manila mostly. So our communities just learned how to do TikTok like last year. So now they get everything from TikTok. Not the makeup stuff, but like how to cook this thing and everything, like all their information. My question is, technology is so fast, and our communities, of course, they're in, our internet penetration is pretty good. I mean, we have Facebook everywhere, but technology is always changing and it's faster and faster. As social entrepreneurs, our role is to always try to not leave anyone behind, especially those in our communities. So if it's so fast and they just learned TikTok, and then now there's ChatGPT, and then there's so many other things, what interventions could we provide for the communities in these areas so that they can catch up, because they will be left even further behind?
I'll start maybe. I know I empathize in technology. It is constantly moving. I mean, I guess the upside of these things is, while, you know, take ChatGPT or the next thing, it's early still. So by the time, you know, we still have a while before it will start to affect the day-to-day lived experience. But how do we, again, provide access to the tutorials, to the guidance wherever they are? So, again, the wonderful part of, as long as we have access, which is an excellent point, you need access, we can provide that content, that tutorial, the free training, the free learning. How do you run your business? How do you market your business? How do you advertise on social media to, you know, anyone who has, even in that case, a cell phone in that area, to be able to get access to that. And there is a lot of material. We probably can do a better job of curating it, making sure it's in the right local languages, those type of things. But it is a solvable problem in that area.
Just follow up real quick, because to that point, I just forgot, but I should mention that we had about 3 SAP volunteers a few years ago. So that was a really good partnership. We work with the SAP volunteers. They made like really fancy spreadsheets, plus like helped us with a lot of our like marketing and for international. So that's actually a very good point, because it has happened to us, and coincidentally with SAP.
Well, thank you. And thank you for creating an engaging employee experience for us as well. So it's a win-win.
Thank you. Thank you, Reese. You didn't mention the name of your company, CEO of Intentionality. So just wanted to recognize you also as one of the Schwab Foundation awardees and communities. Jonathan had his hand up. Perhaps introduce yourself, Jonathan.
I'll stay seated so you don't see the back of my head and you can see the panel. My name is Jonathan Wong. I'm the Chief of Technology United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, a member of the UN Task Force on Social Solidarity Economy, and last but not least, a very proud Schwab. If I may take advantage of the conciseness of the panel to ask a two-part question, and I'll promise to be equally succinct. In the short term, and the first part of the question, what are the policy levers, both public and corporate, that could really accelerate the social economy? And my second is, and let me quote a member of the European Commission who spoke yesterday, who said, we're not saying the traditional economy should be taken over by the social economy. With this in mind, what is your long-term ambition for the social economy? Is it to develop a vibrant social economy as a specific sector, or indeed integrate social economy methods, principles and values into the mainstream market economy, or indeed both or other? Thank you.
Two-part question. Policy levers and long-term ambition.
No, for me the policy lever, the main one, is the challenge that we have on the informal economy. And quite frankly, as I always see the social and solidarity economy as the bridge between the informality and the formal sector. Secondly, as I said it, you know, today is also very clear that in sometimes you have those panels, you know, rich discussion, but you ask yourself if we are living in the same world. On that, some discussions are happening somewhere there, and the real life is elsewhere. And that real life, again, let's not underestimate the role of the social and solidarity economy. And I think the policymakers and the leaders today are much more conscious of that. So that we need to really capitalize on that. What's the second question again?
Long-term ambition.
The long-term ambition, the long-term ambition, first of all, I don't think that it should be top-down. I think we need to together from bottom-up approach on that. But from ILO perspective, is important, you know, we are advocating that development, the SDGs to start with, development has to be human-centered. And if you want to be human-centered, we need to increase the social and solidarity economy role in the GDP, role in the protection of the environment, and obviously role in uplifting the S like social on that. So for that, I do think, I'm not so sure that the 2% that you are referring to, all finance ministers will necessarily agree with you. But we really need to step up. I will agree with that. We need to step up in terms of what are the government are investing in making, facilitating the role of the SSEs in moving up in their role, their participation in the economy. My last point on that, in the long run, you have and will have a role to play in what I call redefining a new social contract. In fact, it might look a little bit too progressist or not, but there are some codes that, I'm not talking about the SAP codes, but there are some codes that we need to break and to redefine together. And there, for me, so the long term, I don't see necessarily in terms of numbers or what percent of GDP, is also the ability to influence the redefining the way forward in the society of our societal living together.
Thank you. Would you like to speak to the long-term ambition?
Yeah, and even the short term, I mean, the policy is less, it's corporate goals and corporate ambitions. And it's easy to say them and have ESG targets or diversity targets or, social enterprise targets, but then actually putting teeth behind it. So actually, part of my compensation as a senior member of the company is those targets, whether we made our ESG priority goals, diversity, employee engagement. I get paid differently based on those outcomes. So it's not just goals, they're actually, there are consequences to it. And so I think that alignment's important because it's one thing to say you have ambitions and say you have goals, another thing to actually put your money where your mouth is in terms of the employee experience and the leadership team. And so I think it drives a level of accountability that, again, when I talk to colleagues and other companies, I don't see quite the same of that. So again, I try to promote that idea of if you're going to have your goals, you need to there's consequences to that as well. So we have, whether it be procurement in terms of a diverse supply chain, whether it be diversity in the workforce or environmental goals that we've set. So as a corporate policy, how we think about it. And then into your longer term, I really do think it's fusing. And just naturally, society and the values are fusing in terms of, increasingly private sector is seeing their role is helping society, not just, making more money for their shareholders. So I think I do believe that is fusing over time, not taking over, but really coming together and a shared value system that creates that alignment.
So I love numbers. So just a few numbers. A study done by one of our members shows that if corporates and governments work with social entrepreneurs, they will be able to deliver their services at 38% less per dollar. So there's a huge saving which will be coming. So that's the one thing. Second is, if we do keep the 2% for people and planet contribution, we would be able to raise 221 billion just from the Fortune 500 companies, and that is more than the overseas development aid. So I think that would be giving money in the hands of the people to be able to try to bridge the inequalities which currently exist. And if you ask me what's my long-term, so I do hope that happens, at least to some extent. But my long-term ambition would be every enterprise is a social enterprise with values right at the center, and we can work in partnership to make sure there is no inequality and to make sure that we actually achieve the SDGs. So for me, that's the most important, Sorry.
Thank you so much. No, there was, I think, all three really important perspectives, that we have this transition period that we're going through in the economy, but the long-term ambition is clearly that these are embedded values, as Drew has said, throughout. Unfortunately, we don't have too many more time for questions because we do have a special guest in the room. And I would like to invite, at this point, our guest of honor, Her Excellency Dr. Najla Bouden, Prime Minister of Tunisia, to join us here on stage. Your Excellency, please. I'll give you this microphone. That's okay. Please take a seat. Please take a seat. Tunisia adopted the bill on the social and solidarity economy in June 2020 and was supported by the ILO in the process. So we're looking forward to hearing from you why Tunisia adopted this bill, how the ILO supported you, and what lessons you can share with our audience here and online in the world. I'm going to give you the microphone that seems to work well.
Yes. Thank you, Francois. First of all, I would like to tell you that I'm very honored to be here with you in Davos, and I would like to congratulate Schwab Foundation for its last celebration, and I would like to commend its tremendous efforts during decades. And as you see, my English is really awful. I'm a French speaker, so I have prepared some words, and let me read these words. So I would like to point out that Tunisia is definitely attached to its policy of solidarity, mutual aid and collective work. And we consider that SSE is a real opportunity to provide concrete solutions to the slow conversion between social evolution and economic development. And as we know, that itself caused by low investment and persistent social and regional inequalities, particularly with regards to employment. And as you know, Tunisia has in recent years and still now experienced a successful democratic transition, but also and unfortunately economic and social difficulties that have been intensified by the pandemic of COVID-19 and the consequence of climate change, as well as the global energy and food crisis. And these intertwining internal and imported difficulties has considerably slowed down broader access to basic social services, creation of decent jobs and reduction of inequalities and poverty, which are the foundation of a more just society. So it's with great interest and ambition that my country has adopted a strategic vision for the SSE to become a real lever for inclusive growth. So in 2020, a law was adopted for the first time after a very large participatory process with all the stakeholders, and to take into consideration the notion of economic decentralization and ensure better social and economic participation of several categories of the population who face various obstacles that prevent them from accessing to the labor market and to the goods and services produced by the traditional economy. More recently, my government took a certain number of measures. Last year, we took one measure which is crucial for me. This is a legislation on community enterprise, the so-called Sharikat Ahliya in Arabic. And this legislation aims at establishing a legal framework based on collective initiative and as an alternative to the classic development approach that proved unfortunately unable to reduce unemployment and poverty. And we are very proud to announce that the first community enterprise was created a few weeks ago in Tunisia. Second, the amendment of the law related to the Tunisian Solidarity Bank to grant loans to social and solidarity economic enterprises. And three, the amendment of the legislation regulating the programs of the National Employment Fund and the condition and methods of its use in order to offer financial incentives to companies especially engaging in SSU. So also, we built altogether Tunisian vision for 2035. And let me tell you that it's based on the certain number of strategic axes, and the 4 strategic axes are oriented to human capital, equitable regional development, green economy and climate change, and social justice. So in this context, we have set up the 23-24 development plan, and this plan has precised the roadmap for the implementation of the solidarity-based economy and social model through a certain number of incentives. And one of them is the encouragement to invest in the SSE sector, the creation of preferential loans, and the realization of a feasible study for the creation of cooperative banks. And another incentive is the enhancement of existing SSE systems with the aim of promoting territorial development and encouraging the transition from the informal to the formal sector. And in this regard, I wish to take this opportunity to mention some key initiatives carried out with our partners. With ILO, we have a Jeunesse Project, and this project, as I said, is supported by ILO, and to promote the SSE and the creation of decent jobs for Tunisian youth, as well as the Fortes project carried out with Canada government, which has already benefited women in several regions of Tunisia. And we have the last program is the so-called Raidet, which is funding about 600 enterprises for the integration of women. And all these things, I will continue, but I know that I have only 5 or 6 minutes, you know. So although the contribution of the social economy to GDP is really below national aspiration, we are convinced that Tunisia will be able in the near future to increase the share of the social and solidarity economy to 5 or even 6% of the GDP per year, and create, hopefully, between 40 and 50,000 direct jobs. This is what I would like to share with you. And once again, thank you so much for your invitation, and congratulations for all I have listened here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Please stay seated. Please stay seated. I'm just going to close, and want to thank you for your powerful statement, Your Excellency, and demonstrating how actions from the government can really help to advance, unlock, and even start new initiatives that are extremely powerful. Thank you so much. I want to thank everyone here in this room, particularly the host partners, the ILO, SAP, Catalyst 2030. We're honored as the Global Alliance for Social Entrepreneurship here at the World Economic Forum to be able to convene this really important message of your partnership today, together in the presence of several dignitaries who are leading the way and demonstrating to many people online and the many social entrepreneurs and community-based enterprises and groups who are watching and hopefully will watch this at some point, to know that their voice and their work is important to us here at this annual meeting, to these institutional actors. It is critical to bring values into our future economy, and we believe, as we've seen the momentum here and the momentum over the last year, the OECD resolution, the ILO resolution, the European Action Plan, the African Union's 10-year strategy, all on the social and solidarity economy, and now we will all be in support of this UN resolution to support the work that's actually happening on the ground. And I think that's what we want to end with, and that's what I think I want to thank everyone here today. We can all play a role, whether we're an employee of a company, whether we're working in government, whether we're citizens, towards building this inclusive future we talk about. We know we have some of these solutions already with us. So let's invest in them, let's support them, and let's work together. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you online.